I'm Dal Bartling, and I certainly hope that you and yours are having yourself that sunnier, warmer day. Getting that time where there's change. Change is happening. Change is happening out there. And you know, the older I am, the more that I think. But speaking of change, why is it that this time of year, at least for me, I'm being very restful and have a real deep sleep in a nice antique brass bed. And then all of a sudden, here comes this foreign voice. It says, alert, alert, battery low. Yes, one of the smoke detectors has the foresight to tell me ahead of time, in the middle of the night, of course, not during the day, that the battery is low. Have you ever been awakened by a deep sleep? For me, I'm in a daze. First I wonder, is it part of a dream or something? So I try to go back to sleep, and that's not going to happen because in a few seconds, guess what? Alert, alert, your battery is low. So I do have to decide, I might as well get up and try to change the battery. So, short little me, I have to go get a ladder. So I'm just getting up from a deep sleep. Gonna go find the ladder, get the ladder. Oh, by the way, I better stop and get, yes, some batteries. And then here I go. And now I'm listening to hear which room did that noise come from. And after a couple of times, I do pinpoint it. And I get the battery changed. Aha. We're in a world of change. To use that word change now as a springboard, I'd like to add a couple two words to that if I could. It's this. They both start with the letter N. Nature versus nurture. Let me expand upon that. By nature, what I mean is genetics. Your genetics. The color of your eyes, the color of your hair, although mine hasn't always been gray, but the color of your hair. Maybe if you're left-handed or right-handed, but not necessarily the language you're speaking. That comes from then the other half of that N, not nature, genetics, but nurture. Again, me as an experiment, a little Panamanian baby, maybe about the 2.5, 3 years old, up and gets moving to Germany. You see, that little Panamanian baby joined a nomadic group. This nomadic group goes from camp to camp to camp, and maybe every 2 or 3 years. Speaking, of course, of the military families, and they still do that. I think today they're called tumbleweed kids because they don't have very long roots in any one place. That was the group. Well, this little Panamanian baby in Germany, they had a German maid, so guess the language that he started to speak. Yes, German. A Panamanian, brown little baby speaking German. Nature or nurture. And then moving to the States, taking on the nurture of different localities within the United States itself. It very much, I would say, affected me. You see, I wanted to be kind of this human super American. I wanted to be an American kid in every single way, particularly when I was a teenager there. Another example of nurture that was part of my experiment was I had the opportunity to then join a culture that sometimes is called like the miner's canary. Meaning that as things affect us totally here in America, that you can really see it come forth with this particular culture. This would be the Native American culture. And living with them, I then later come to learn differences within them as I was being nurtured by that culture. A couple examples. The Native American culture, I would say the emphasis is on age and respect for their elders. Calling the extended family aunties. Whereas non-Indian would maybe be more emphasis on the youth. Just think of our commercials. Think of our commercials. Indian culture, children participated in adult activities, whereas adults participate in youth activities on the non-Indian. I'm thinking of a Indian culture of the powwow, of the hand game, all adult activities, and the family comes in together there. Of course, in the Indian nurturing was the oral tradition. And then in the non-Indian, it was more of the written word. You see, observing back on the nurturing of the Indian community that I lived with, there was a lot of silence, a lot of storytelling by the elders, and you listened. You listened. You had respect for them, and you didn't talk out of turn. Your silence was your respect there. There was more, I think, of modesty within the Indian culture. As a non-Indian, I think I've observed in my experiment of myself of more self-attention. Nature versus nurture. It was only late in my life that I came then to experience more of that nature element. You see, when I found my family and then was able to go visit them with my family here, I was able then to experience more of that nature part of me. You see this nose? This nose indeed might not be like yours. But when I go down there to Panama and I'm with my family, there's a lot of us. Yes, indeed, we have this nose. The very first time that I met my family, that we arrived there, one of my aunts pointed to me, and she pointed to her nose, and then she pointed to mine. Yes, nature. I can remember one visit, and it means something to me, maybe not a lot to you, but I was talking to my brother Pedro. Now Pedro, I would call here a county extension agent. He knew the plants, he knew the animals. He was quite an educator, still is, but in talking with Pedro. At one particular point, we were then having a discussion and he was educating me and I was asking questions, and then almost simultaneously, folks, I put my arm out and made a gesture, and I've done this gesture before. It was almost what you would say second nature to me. But at the time that I did it, Pedro did the very same thing. I'd look over and it was like a shadow of myself, a shadow of my nature, a shadow of my genetics. Nature versus nurture. So I've been very blessed that finding my family, I've been able to get more of a balance of that nature versus nurture, and maybe understanding that more. And understood how I could add value as I cross paths with different people. But to do so, I had to find myself. I found myself when I stopped trying to be like anyone else. Not that super American teenage kid. I knew myself when I examined myself and asked myself questions and gave honest answers. I became myself when I accepted myself as the good Lord made me. I improved myself when I consistently developed my skills through, yes, trial and error. I got over myself when I stopped focusing on myself and how I looked to others. And I gave myself when I start thinking about others and how I could help them. So I had to find myself, to know myself, to be myself, to improve myself, yes, to get over myself, to give myself to you. Change, it's a coming. And the good Lord made you with that combination of nature and nurture. Enjoy it. And until we talk again, and again we will, I want you to have yourself that sunnier, warmer day. And I'm rooting for you. You know why? Because we're in this together. You take care.